Hello there, and welcome back to the Smell of Logic channel. I am Ramona, and we are reading more funny workplace stories. Funny, interesting, amusing, entertaining. You use whatever word you want to use. But anyway, here we go with let's see, number one. Ready? When I was 18, I was working at a Burger King in a drive-thru. A gray pickup truck pulled up, and the guy ordered a large pink lemonade. I have the drink ready when he gets to the window. He's holding the money, but not within reach, so I leaned out of the window to get the money and hand him his drink. I happened to look down and realized that the tip of his was peeking out of the bottom of his shorts. I snatched the money and hopped back into the store, all shocked. I turned to the girl working with me and said, OMG, that guy's going to be so embarrassed when he realizes that his is out and visible. Bless my sweet, dumb, innocent heart. The next day, the same guy pulled into the drive-thru and ordered another large pink lemonade. I hadn't noticed anything unusual at that point. He pulled the same trick, but every day I would see so many people that I didn't recognize him, his truck, or his little maneuver. So once again, I leaned out the window to give him his drink and take the money. I caught his eye for a second, and he glanced down at his lap. So I followed his lead and looked down too, and there it was, his little Vienna sausage, smiling up at me again. In complete flabbergasted shock, I looked down at him, and we held an intense, prolonged eye contact that it felt like an eternity. Without a word, I just pulled back through the window, closed it, and watched him drive away into the sunset, never to be seen again. I told the girl, same one as the day before, what happened, and she was like, "You should have poured the drink on him, told him it was small, etc." I was literally too shocked to have any reaction at all. Edit. I didn't realize I explained something well. The guy had on shorts, and the tip of his was peeking out of the leg of his shorts. It wasn't out in its full glory. I had thought that he was going to go commando or something, but it was just hanging out a little bit. I was very super naive. Number two, I was working at a local grocery store, and there was a guy who came in all the time that we called Headphones Guy, for obvious reasons. He would come in singing and dancing and start spouting off some crazy conspiracy theory shit. One day, he said we were all meat puppets, and that the U.S. government was sending our military personnel to Canada through underground tunnels to get chips put in their heads. Another time, he was convinced that our bags of flour were actually cocaine. He would often pull out a little recorder and record some of his thoughts while browsing the aisles. I can't recall many of the theories he spouted off while shopping, but the meat puppets one will always be with me. Number three, I was working graveyard at a Carl Jr.'s. A customer came in and ordered a meal. When the food is ready, I bring it to his table. An hour later, he comes back and is furious. He asks why his bun is rock solid. He tosses a little sliver of bun on the counter and is poking at it with his finger. He asks me to poke it. So I put on some gloves and pick it up. And yeah, it is pretty hard. I told him, "You've been there for an hour. Stuff like that happens." Guy gets really mad and demands a refund. I tell him he can't have one because he pretty much finished the meal. The guy starts screaming at me and slapping the counter. I told him he needs to leave. The guy then sticks his fingers in his throat to return the meal. I told him he can have his refund if he's gagging himself. I put his refund on the counter. Then somehow gets him even angrier. He picks up the money and yeets it behind the counter. He says he wants to know why his bun was hard. I told him the same thing. The guy demands that I pick up the money off the ground. I say no, but that I will be calling the police. The guy takes off, slamming the door and kicking it, trying to break the glass. He gives me the finger and then fades away into the night. Number four, the number of times people would crawl under the propped up grate to get in after the store was technically closed and then berate employees when they were asked to leave. I'm not sure if this is the same everywhere, but when I worked at a mall in the early 2000s, when the store closed but a customer was still inside finishing up their transaction, the manager would pull the grate down 90% of the way to indicate that we were closed. Grown adults would army crawl under to sneak inside after we were closed. All that hassle to be told, "Sorry, we're closed." And this was a Build-A-Bear workshop. Adults would crawl along a filthy mall floor to try to sneak inside to purchase an overpriced bear. Number five, not me, but my grandma used to work in Walmart in the fish and game department section, and she would print licenses, sell knives, guns, etc. She had a customer come in looking for a .22 revolver, and she had the strangest feeling about him because he was just sitting there talking to himself, almost acting to the point of insanity. He had kept looking down when speaking to her, when she asked for his ID, and these were his words. "I've bought a gun here before. You should have my information on your computer system, right? Right?" She had to explain that even though she had his info, she still needed to see his ID. He would listen and kept nagging my grandmother until she refused to sell it to him. She entered her shift like half an hour later, and guess who starts following her until she gets to her car? Yep, it's the weird, insane dude. So she had just gotten into her car when he tried knocking on her window, and no, it wasn't any sort of polite knock. It seemed like he would break his knuckles. So my grandma got out of the car, walked up to him, held him still, and said very calmly, "Listen, if you follow me, harass me, or even look in my direction again, your funeral won't be an open casket." And she got in her car and left. Number 6. Before going into childcare, I did 5 years of customer service in a retail store, so I got some good stories. One of my favorites was this woman with a bundle of clothes in her arms, and she wants to try them on. Our store policy is that we count the items going in and out with the customers. This woman would not let me count them. She threw them on the ground, began jumping and screaming at me. Her face would get inches from mine, and she was swinging her hands at me while screaming out how I was accusing her of stealing. She and her friends were going to beat me up after I was done with work. I'm a dead woman. All sorts of bonkers stuff. It pissed her off that I wasn't flinching away from her hands swinging, and I didn't look afraid. I did get tired of it. So I walked around to the front of the station, and I said that I get off work at 10. I'll see you then. I sat on my bumper for half an hour and nothing. The same car drove to the parking lot several times, slowing down by me, then driving off. Maybe it was them, maybe it wasn't. But I never saw those people again. Number 7. I worked at a hotel in Oregon, and some guy comes in and gets a room. He is staying for about a week, so we asked about some sites around the city, little shops for souvenirs. We told him some and gave him some maps so he wouldn't get lost. Over the course of the next few days, he goes to these places and always reports back, which isn't too strange because we gave him the recommendation. So it's nice to hear that he enjoyed it. The day he supposedly is supposed to check out, I come into work to see the police and my manager talking. I come to find out that the guy was not only gone to each place, but robbed each place and was using the hotel as a base of operations. Because he had a good relationship with the guy, I had a good relationship with the guy, I was tasked with going up and knocking on his door for a wellness check before he checked out. When he answered the door, the police pushed me out of the way and tackled the guy to the ground. He was stashing the money in the ceiling above the bathtub. He was cooperative with the officers and didn't seem too upset about being caught, even asked us about his stay as they were walking him out. Number 8. It wasn't retail, but I would argue that working at a beach resort exposed me to a lot more crazy scenarios than you might find in retail. Like the one guy who checked in and started bitching about the sargasso seaweed, that was washing up on the beach. We explained that cleaning it up was pointless, as there would be another layer of it in just a few hours. Plus, it came in spurts so that the tide might take it away overnight, and you might not see it for the rest of the week. He called us lazy and said that we were ruining his vacation. So the next day, this guy is spotted out there with a rake he obviously bought at a local hardware store, raking the effing beach. Mind you, this was not a small task. There was about 500 feet of beachfront in our resort, and the line of seaweed was about 5 feet wide and 5 feet thick. It was also heavy because it contained a lot of moisture. Nevertheless, this MF spent an entire Saturday in the afternoon sun raking the seaweed into huge piles which made it stink to high heaven. He managed to clear about 75 to 100 linear feet of this stuff before he called it a day. The next day, I arrived at work to see that every single pile that he had created was gone, and the seaweed was back to where it had just been, and at the same thickness. We didn't see him raking again that Sunday, but that's what's important to note is that Monday morning, all of the seaweed was gone, and it didn't return for a couple of weeks after. Number 9. This was years ago when I worked at PetSmart. Early on in my marriage, a guy called the store said he was flying back to where the F ever in the Caribbean, where he apparently lived, and they didn't sell whatever the F he wanted or needed. This was years before the whole buy it on the internet or via phone, and we'll bag it up for you and have it ready when you arrive thing, mind you. He had me running all over the damn store, looking for all these dog care supplies, including one of those invisible fence systems to keep your dog from going outside of a certain area. Anyway, the dude eventually shows up and starts screaming at me because, of course, all of his items were in plastic store bags. Screams. How is he supposed to carry all this stuff on the airplane when it's in these bags? He can't carry all of it, and yada yada. I shrug and tell him I'm sorry, it's not really my problem, and go out and fetch a manager for him to yell at. Number 10. I worked at a local pet food store that was one of the first boutique-style pet stores that sold high-end, human-grade pet food. On the package, it clearly is marked not for human consumption because, it's pet food. Anyway, this woman comes in to return one of these bags of cat food under the 100% satisfaction guaranteed deal this specific company had. For obvious reasons, I ask what's wrong with it. If there's something we can do with the flavor or the allergens or upset stomach, I can work with her to find a new food that may work. She points out that the not for human consumption and says the brand is clearly misleading people, as it also states on the bag it's human grade. So humans should be able to eat the food. I tried explaining it just meant that the food wouldn't sustain human life. It's not nutritionally balanced for humans. It's for cats. She still didn't get it. The bag said human grade, so she should be able to eat it. I gave up after a minute or two and just refunded her the money. I didn't know how to explain to a fully grown adult that cat food isn't for humans, regardless of the ingredients. Another story I had. A woman comes in wanting to feed her cat raw food. This is like the mid-2000s, so raw food isn't big. Never mind raw food for cats. I explain how you buy X or Y brand, but you need to buy specific supplements because there isn't any taurine in it, a needed nutrient for heart and eye health in cats. She pauses a moment before asking, like in Red Bull? Yeah, similar. So I can just open a can of Red Bull on it? No. Please do not give your cat a can of Red Bull for breakfast. She left without buying anything because it would be too hard. Pet owners are effing weird, man. That's true, we are. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like or a comment or share the video. Go check out a couple other videos. There's a lot of them. Check out my author's page on Amazon. There's a link in the description of every single video. Anyway, hope you have enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks, and bye.